Now, who are these 10% of people who keep it simple? Well, obviously it's Prism users. And who keeps it complicated? That's everyone else, right? No, this is a joke. This is just kidding. I just thought my presentation would look better if I had like a chart in it, so I just threw a chart in there. But really, I just want to illustrate that, you know, I go to a lot of places, I speak at a lot of events, I meet with a lot of customers, and honestly, a lot of the implementations I see of just basic MVVM are overcomplicated. You know, MVVM is simple, so we're gonna see how simple it is, and then we'll start throwing the level of complexities on top, right? So, what is this MVVM you speak of, right? Well, we all know it's a design pattern, and design patterns give a common name to something that we use every day. That way, when you're talking about how you develop to me, and you're using a design pattern, say MVVM, well, we give it this name, MVVM, because now we can communicate efficiently without getting anything confused. I know what you're talking about when you're describing your issues to me and how you develop, and we can have a conversation about it. That's what a design pattern really does. It just gives a name to something we already do, okay? And as far as MVVM goes, this is MVVM. This is it, okay? You have your view. Everyone knows that. We've all seen this in some form or another. Your view model is your little middleman. Then you have your model, which is your business logic and data. And this can be like a POCO, like a person object, or it could be a service directly. It doesn't matter, right? But for the most part, in our world, in C# land, WPF land, it's some type of business object. Now, this is it. This is MVVM. It's a view separation design pattern. That's all. You're done. Conversation over, right? So when we're implementing MVVM, you always get the question, what happens if I break the pattern? Because you know, when you're developing, there are different camps from every position, right? Everyone has an opinion, and I'm quite opinionated myself. So as you know, if you break any design pattern, you go to jail. The pattern police come kick down your door, the pattern SWAT team comes in, takes you away. Okay, not really, that doesn't happen. What really happens when you break the pattern? Nothing. Nothing happens. Your target end user, your customer, does not care what pattern you're using, right? They're paying you, your company's paying you to deliver something, and they don't want you sitting there for a week trying to figure out how to show a dialogue without using code behind. I mean, let's be pragmatic here. Nothing happens. So if you're using MVVM and you come upon a complex situation that you're beating your head against the wall because it's just more difficult with MVVM, because those situations exist. Anytime you add a layer of complexity or separation of concern, that happens. You're going to have scenarios that aren't easy to accomplish using that pattern separation, and MVVM is no different. So do not be afraid to throw some code behind in there to get around an issue or something that you need to deliver your project or for a sprint or whatever you have to do to meet your end goal to get paid, right? That's what we're all in for. We want to get paid. So make sure you get paid. Nothing happens if you break the pattern. Okay, so when dealing with MVVM, remember, MVVM is just view, model, view, model. That's all we're dealing with, those three concepts. So we have our view, and of course our view in WPF land has a data context, and then we have our view model. That's all our cool code, right? The most difficult choice that you're going to have to make when you start using MVVM is how do you make that connection from the view's data context to the view model? That's it. That's the hardest choice you're going to make. And from there, it's smooth sailing. Okay, so how do we make the connection? There's actually a number of ways we can make this connection. Okay, you can do it in code behind. You can do it with XAML. You can do it with constructor injection in code behind. You can do it view model first. And actually, there's multiple ways to view model first. You can do implicit data types or data templates where you just inject a view model class into a view and then a data template is applied. I don't like that approach for a number of reasons. First, performance. I mean, WPF performance kind of blows already, so I don't want to go throwing tons and tons of data templates being implicitly applied by the framework. And every time I have to add a new view or new view model, I got to go create a data template and then go to my ViewModel Locator, right? Which is another way to do it. I have to go to a ViewModel Locator and add a new property for a new view model that will implicitly apply a data template, and it's just a big maintenance pain in the butt. So ViewModel Locator is another approach, and with ViewModel Locator, there's actually a couple of different approaches to take, which we'll look at. And those are basically your core. There's other ways to do it. I mean, there's factories. I mean, there's a variety of other ways to make that connection, but these are going to be your main scenarios that you would use. I actually used to do ViewModel first, but different. I used to use interfaces, and yeah, I used to make it really complicated, and I don't do that anymore. I learned my lesson a long time ago. And of course, code behind. People, you want to try to avoid it if you can, but like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing code behind if you need to. Be pragmatic and get paid. Okay, so that's all my slides. Okay, so we're all demo now. So do we have any questions regarding those slide decks that we just went over?
Let's see, taking a look at our question panels, we have, is this Prism usable with Xamarin and PCL?
Yes, it is. What I'm showing you is good for Xamarin Forms and for WPF, and currently, okay, so I'm actually going to show you some preview code today. So we're going to be going over the preview of Prism 6 that's out on NuGet just the other day. I just released it the other day. So the Windows Store apps won't have this Prism 6 functionality yet because we're still working on the UWP, the new Universal Windows Platform code base. But so what I'm showing you will work in WPF and in Xamarin Forms. And there's also, I'll point out in the PCLs we're using, in the packages I bring in, which ones are just pure PCL, and you don't need any, it's not framework dependent, it's just a pure PCL, and you can use an iOS, Android, it doesn't matter.
Okay, we have another question. I use controller classes to connect View and ViewModel. Is this acceptable?
Of course it's acceptable. There's no rule that says you have to do this way, right? You have to make the connection between the data context and the view model this way. There's no rule that says that. What you do is you find what works for you and you use it, and you make sure your team knows it. And you need to make sure whatever you use is easy for a new person who comes on the team to understand, because the last thing you need is to have a complex MVVM framework you built and then have to spend a week trying to explain it to a new person who's never seen that in their life. So that's what we want to try to avoid. Ideally, someone coming in will just see it and say, oh, yeah, I've used this in my other place. We do this all the time. So if they use something like Prism or MVVM Lite, you're going to run into that. People who use MVVM Lite, or they use Prism in the past, most likely they have, they'll come in and hit the ground running. But if you do something custom, just be careful how complex you make it.
Excellent. So we have a couple more questions here that are coming through. I'm not sure if you want to either jump into the demo, address a couple more.
Let's take one more and then we'll get to demo, and then I'll address any others afterwards.
Okay, let's see. So how does Prism fit in the Windows 10 UWP?
Okay, we'll save that one for later because it's kind of off topic.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, so what I have here is I have a very simple project. Okay, this is a WPF project. We're going to have some views in here. So right now I have a main window. In this main window, we'll just take a peek. We have some buttons at the top because you already know that I'm going to use these. You're already saying, oh yeah, you're going to use those for navigating to different views, and you're absolutely right. You know, we're going to start navigating to view A and view B. And we also have a view A, already defined in this view, right? So it's a view inside of a view because that's kind of how it works. Okay. Now, we're starting with view A. And view A is just a very simple form. We have a first name, we're going to have a last name, we're going to have some an updated text, and then we have a button that when we click it's going to update the updated text. No big deal. Okay, so that means we need to create a view model for this view right now. So I have a view models folder, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a new class because that's all a view model is. We all know that. We're all experienced devs here. So what did I call this Windows? Main window, view model. All right. Actually, it's not main window view model. I wanted view A view model. So view A view model. Even better. Okay. So we have this view model. It's going to be public. Now the first thing I want to address is we all know that view models must implement iNotify property changed, right? We know this because this is the mechanism that is used by the framework to notify the UI that values in a binded class have updated, and so the UI needs to reflect that change. But here's the issue. I've seen this implemented wrong so many times it drives me nuts. And it's a very minute change that needs to be made. So this is what is normally done, okay? And you've probably done this. It's no big. I used to do this too until I learned. So now I'm going to show you guys. So we're just going to say, hey, void on property changed, right? And of course, we want to use our caller member name attribute. Okay, so this is what normally happens. You'll normally see, hey, if this doesn't equal null, then go ahead, property changed, this new property change event args, and then you pass in the property name, right? That's kind of what we see. This is common, very common. The problem is you are opening yourself up for runtime exceptions with this, okay? Especially if you're multi-threading, because you should be multi-threading for one. If you're not multi-threading, you need to go learn how to do that and implement that in your apps. But what you need to add is called what's a race condition, because in a multi-threading scenario, there is a chance, and this has happened to me, that this goes null a split second after this check. After you check it and it says, hey, if this isn't null, run this. Right after this check, it is completely possible and has happened to me that it goes null, and then this throws an exception at runtime and my application crashes and I have no idea what the heck's going on because it's already hard enough to debug multi-threaded applications. So you need to add a race conditioner, a race condition. Okay, we're just going to grab it and we're going to hold a reference to it really quick. There, that is how you properly implement on property change. Okay, this is what you want to do right here. So I'm going to leave this up just for a second so you can take screenshots or whatever you need to do. This is how you need to implement it. Okay, and then of course, we're going to need a property. Now, in a production application, you're actually going to have a model class, like a person object. For our purposes, we don't really need that. We're going to keep it simple. So I'm going to add a property. And actually, I want this to be a full prop with a backing field. Let me string. First name, we'll just call it first name. And of course, you would come in here and call on property changed. So this is what it looks like. And in the past, we used to have to actually pass in first name, but because of this caller member name attribute, we don't have to do this anymore. So yeah, we can just do it. So we get rid of magic strings, which is awesome. Okay, well, here's an area Prism helps already, will help you improve already, keep things a little simpler. So first, I'm going to add a NuGet package. And I'm going to add Prism.core. This is the new Prism 6. It's a pre-release right now. So when you add this NuGet package, you have to change this combo box to include pre-release. And then you'll see Prism 6. Now this is a PCL. This has commanding. This has the event aggregator in it. This has some bindable base classes, some logging. This is a PCL, so this is one of those assemblies that can be used in any application that supports PCL, not just WPF. So this is the core Prism library. So I'm just going to go ahead and install this. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this because I'm going to use a Prism class called bindable base. If I can just get it there. Okay. So a bindable base, I'm going to delete that. Cannot resolve that. Prism. Okay, we're going to keep going because it should be there. Well, that's interesting. Let me do a build. Okay, that worked. There, worked that time. Oh, okay, it stopped working. Okay, so I don't know what's going on here. I might have to restart Visual Studio. Anyway, so I have a code snippet, which I will be shipping with Prism 6, called Prism Prop. And that's going to add a new property definition, but it's going to be a little different. You can already see the setter, which is different. So I'm going to call this first name, just like we did before, and first name. Now the set property here, this is actually coming from bindable base. Let's do a rebuild. See, I'm getting a successful build, so this must be ReSharper's issue, because ReSharper has been messing up on me lately. It's a good tool, but it's kind of flaky. And this is one of those instances where it's kind of flaky. Okay, so I have first name. Now we have this set property. So what set property does is it's going to basically do an equality check. It's going to say, is this backing variable, is this backing field the same value as the incoming value? And if it is, it's not going to do anything. It's going to skip it. But if it's different, it's going to set first name to the new value, then call on property changed for you automatically. You don't have to do anything. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to close this and open it back up and see if it's just a ReSharper issue. So I'm going to close Visual Studio. I'm going to open this back up. Come on. All right, so let's open this back up and see if ReSharper. Okay, ReSharper's working again. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have our first name, we know that we need other properties. So I'm going to continue to use our snippet here, and then we'll make this one last name. Okay, and then I think I had a date time is what I want. And we'll call this last updated. Works for me. Okay. So we have this view. Now we need to make the decision, how are we going to connect this view to the view model? Remember, we can do it right here in XAML. We can do it in code behind. We can do it in structure injection. So just temporarily, just for fun, right? We're not going to keep it this way. Just for now, we're going to make it the data context equals a new view A view model right here in code. Because we just want to test to make sure this works properly. So that means we need to come into our view, and we got to start creating our bindings. So say binding, first name, and case sensitive, which I can't wait for xbind to come to WPF. That will be awesome. And then binding, last updated. Okay, perfect. So let's go into our view A view model. I'm going to set this to a default value just to make sure our bindings work. Let's run the app, and we set our data context. We have our simple view model, and here we go. It works right there. But you see this updated text? I want to change that. I don't actually want anything to show up, so let's just make this nullable, just so it's blank. I don't want to mess with it, and I don't want to mess with converters. Okay, so we had a button on here too, and we need to update. So when we click this button, we want to do something. So that automatically tells me I'm going to need a command. Okay, so I'm going to add a new property of iCommand, and we'll call it update command. All right, so we have this command, and there's lots of ways to do commands. The old school way is you actually have a class, something called like my command, that implements I command. Right? But the problem with this is, we'll just go ahead and return true, is if I want this command to actually change the last updated date of anything that this ViewModel has access to, I actually have to do something like this. I'll have to create a constructor, and in here I'll have to pass in my ViewModel, right? And then in here I would say update command equals new ViewModel, or new my command, passing in my ViewModel, right? And we don't want to do this. This is a pain in the butt, right? That's too complicated. Instead, we're going to use what's called a delegate command. This is Prism's delegate command. This is in the PCL, and allows us to provide methods in place of basically the execute and can execute event handler. So we're providing some delegates here. So I'm going to just create that method there, and we'll create the can execute here. And for here, we'll say, you know what, we can only execute this if the first name and the last name is not empty, right? So we'll use the nice string is null or white space. But when this condition is true, we're going to be able to invoke that command. In that case, I'm going to just set the last updated equal to date time now. Okay, perfect. Makes perfect sense. So now we come into our view, and we know that we have to set a command here. We're going to bind that command to the updated command. And hopefully I named everything correctly. Nope, it's update, not updated. See that? That would have been an error. Okay, now I already know I'm one of those people who like to kind of validate as the end user types. It kind of gives a better experience. So I'm going to change this binding to say update source trigger equals PropertyChanged. So now I'm going to run this app. We can see that this is disabled because our condition is false. Okay, so now I'm going to type. The expectation is that this is going to enable, and I can click it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, unlike a routed command, a delegate command does not hook into the command manager. Okay, and if you use a command that hooks into the command manager, I wouldn't, because you have no control over when the can execute is raised again. And what I mean by that is you have no control when this is checked. It could be when the mouse moves over a certain element, or when you resize. When you hook into the command manager, the WPF framework will decide when to check that. Well, I don't like that. So one approach is to just take the updated command and call raise can execute. In order to access that, I actually have to get rid of the interface. Right? I could do something like that. But then we have to do it for every one of these. Now if we run the app, as I type it updates, I click update, perfect, disabled, disabled. Yep, works like a charm. But you're thinking, Brian, I thought we're supposed to make this easy. I mean, this kind of sucks. What if I have a lot of properties I want to check? I mean, I don't want to have to call update command.raise can execute all the time on every single property. It's what a pain to maintain and pain to test. Okay, well, let me help fix that for you. So let's say that you have some properties that you want to call the raise can execute on the command in your view model. Well, the delegate command in Prism 6 has a new observes property, right? So I can say, hey, this command observes the first name and it observes the last name. So what this says is, hey, delegate command, I want you to kind of track and automatically listen for value changes on the first name and last name property, and when that happens, just go ahead and call raise can execute automatically, right? I don't want to have to worry about it. You do it for me. So now when we run this, it works as expected, and we got rid of all that nasty stuff in our setters of our properties. So now our setters look much nicer, and this is a lot easier to test. I also want to mention that if you're, let me just copy this right quick. Another cool thing about the new delegate command is, let's say that your delegate command doesn't have a method, right? It's simple. Your can execute is not a method. Instead, it's a simple property. Well, you can actually observe can execute and provide a Boolean property, which we don't have any Boolean properties in here, but if I did, I would just put it here, and that would be the can execute Boolean property, right? And so this means that not only will it listen for property change notifications, but this is what will be used as your can execute delegate, which is pretty cool. All right. Okay. So now that we have commanding, we need to solve another problem, okay? Because commanding is not unique to MVVM. If you're writing a non-MVVM app, you're still going to use commanding. So that's why when I was talking about what MVVM is and what it's not, MVVM is not commanding. It's not any type of communication between view models. It's not navigation, because those items you have to solve no matter what type of app you're writing, okay? So as far as MVVM is concerned, we already have that pattern solved, right? And we solved that with this connection, which I personally don't like this connection. So before we move on, are there any questions regarding the commands or any of the property stuff I just covered?
Let's see, we have a couple of people who are very interested in seeing if you have any inside info on when Xbind might be coming to WPF, and some people even mentioning how you can vote it up.
Yeah, so Xbind is on the backlog for the WPF team. They couldn't get to it for this upcoming release of .NET. What they did get in for WPF that came over from the new UWP XAML is the deferred loading strategy. So that's one thing that did make it. They are working on Xbind, but it's not going to make it in time for the release.
Okay. Is observe property better than the observe can execute?
Okay, so there's a difference between observes property and observes can execute. Remember, observes can execute uses that same property as the can execute delegate here. So we basically replace this can execute method here with a Boolean property instead of a method. Okay, so there's the difference. Observes property just observes a property for change notifications. So I still have my method because maybe I have more complex logic I need to run, and it's not a simple true or false. I actually need to check other things. But I still want to raise can execute when these properties change. So there's a slight difference there. So if you don't want to use a method, then you can use a property instead. You can use the observed can execute.
All right. Let's see. We have, how do you fire property changed event in the case of a property full name?
Property full name? Well, in that case, okay, so I notify property change is kind of a pain in the butt just because of the way it works. What you would normally do if you're not using any plugins or anything is in your last name you would call something like on property changed, and then you would pass in the full name. Okay. Now there's a plugin out there called foddy.inotify property changed. It's FODY, that will do IL weaving to simplify all that for you, which I use for more complicated scenarios. But basically, that's if you have a dependent property, you're going to have to manually call on property change for that specific property.
Okay, one more question related to this. What about if we have a lot of properties?
Well, it doesn't matter if you have a lot of properties. and all of those, and every single one of those has to call notify property change. You might want to look at the design of that. That sounds a little fishy to me. But if that happens, you may pull that out. Like for example, this technically should be in a person class, technically, right? So maybe you pull that into a model object instead and hook into its iNotify property change. But yeah, that would start to smell a little. That would have a little code smell to me if you had 15 properties that you wanted to observe on a command. That's a little weird. Okay, so we're halfway through. Let's keep chugging along. So we have this command. Now let's solve this. Let's fix this because I don't like this. I want it simpler. I want it easier than that. Technically, I don't even want to come back here. I'd rather not see this code behind if I could help it. So what's another approach we can use? Well, we can use what's called a ViewModel Locator. Okay. Now I'm just going to come down here and kind of play around for a minute. Traditional ViewModel Locators, I personally can't stand them, and I'll tell you why. So normally you have this static class, right? And we'll call it like ViewModel Locator. ViewModel Locator. And then in the static class, you'll have a static property for every single view model in your app, right? And you'll have the get, set, whatever. You'll have all the blah, 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 okay? And then you'll go, and then you'll add a implicit data tie or data template. So whenever you apply this, it gets injected in, or you just use the ViewModel Locator and set your binding, your data context in XAML on your view. So if we go to view A, you would use your ViewModel Locator up here, okay, and set the data context. But the problem with this is every time I add a new view or a new view model, I have to come back into this class, I have to add another property, then I have to worry about, wait a minute, what about passing state from one view model to another? Okay, so now I have this static state, or I have to manage all this stuff that I don't want to manage, and it becomes a nightmare in a major production application. I don't like that. So instead, we're going to use the ViewModel Locator, but we're going to use a better ViewModel Locator. Okay, so here we go. We're going to add another NuGet package, not a reference, NuGet package. And it's going to be the prism.wpf NuGet package right here. Prism 6 for WPF. Remember, it's pre-release. So let's install that and hope that ReSharper doesn't get all mad at me again. It looks like NuGet's getting mad at me right now. Okay, so while this installs, I'm kind of explaining how this works. So the Prism ViewModel Locator is different than probably any ViewModel Locator you've seen. It has nothing to do with a static class in which you have to add properties to. Okay. Instead, what it does is it will use it uses dependency injection. Okay, and it uses inversion of control, and it will either use reflection or if you don't use a container, which we'll get to. So if you're not using a container like Unity, it will use activator.create instance to create the view model it's looking for, and it uses a convention. So let's just check this out real quick. So I'm in view A, and because I'm kind of paranoid about ReSharper, I'm just going to do a rebuild here. Okay, so I'm going to add a new namespace here for Prism. And if you're a previous Prism user, we created a new URL scheme here, prismlibrary.com for your XML NS namespaces. The old ones are still supported, but they're legacy, so I recommend using this instead. Now, I'm going to say Prism ViewModel Locator AutoWire ViewModel equals true. Boom, we are done. That's it. No more. Okay. So what is happening here is Prism is using a convention. Okay, now this convention basically says, hey, I'm going to have this view called view A, and then I'm going to look into a view model's namespace for something called view A view model. Okay, so its convention is view name appended with view model. Now the only time this would be different is if I had like a view, or super view. If my view name ended in the actual word view, in that case it would just be my view model, not my view model, my view model, because it's kind of ugly when you get in there when you have my view model, and it's confusing, and just saying it sounds weird. Okay, so it looks like ReSharper is mad at me still, but that's okay, because it should still run because it compiled just fine. So all we did was change. We're using this attached property now. We got rid of the code behind. We don't have a static class we have to maintain. I just said, hey, auto wire this view model, and everything still works as it's expected to work. And you're going to see the real benefit of this ViewModel Locator here in a minute. Okay, so there. And let's open that back up. Yeah, so ReSharper still doesn't like me. Okay, so that's ViewModel Locator. That's all there is to it. You don't have to do anything anywhere else. You just add this property, this attached property, to your views, and it automatically finds your view models and creates them. Okay, so let's talk about something else now. Any questions on ViewModel Locator?
Yeah, let's see. We have, can you please explain the ViewModel Locator convention once more?
Okay, so the convention says that the ViewModel Locator is going to look for your view in a namespace called views. So here's views, right? And it's in a folder, so a lot of people like to think in folders. So you notice I have a views folder and I have a view models folder. So the convention is going to say, hey, I'm going to look in your views folder, which is technically just a namespace, for, I know I'm called view A. I'm in this views folder. I'm called view A, so I know I'm going to go look for a view models namespace, aka folder, for something called view A view model. So here's my Prism demo view models dot view A view model, and then it's going to hook it up automatically. Now let's say you don't like that convention. No problem, you can change it. Okay, I have a blog post on my blog called Getting Started with the Prism's ViewModel Locator. Go check that out. It shows you how you can change the convention to whatever you want it to be, and how to add dependency injection support and all that stuff. Okay. All right. So let's move on. So we talked about commanding. We talked about the ViewModel Locator. Well, let's start getting into stuff like what do you want to solve next? Let's solve navigation. Navigation's a fun one, right? So I'm gonna open up this view model, and what we want to do is we want to navigate somehow to other places, to other things. We might not necessarily know what they are, but we need to be able to navigate loosely coupled with no view references in my view model from within a view model. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, now things are going to start getting, we need to start leveraging more of what Prism provides. So I'm going to add another NuGet package. Okay, and I'm going to add prism.unity. Now, Unity, which I'm sure you're familiar with, not the game engine Unity, but the dependency injection container Unity, right? We're going to use Unity to resolve types for us. And Prism actually has, we have prism.structureMap, prism.autofac, and prism.mef support for Prism 6 so far. Okay, so I'm going to install Unity, accept the Unity license, and hopefully this goes quicker. Oh, yep, it did. So NuGet likes me now. Okay, so now we actually have to start setting this up to be more of a proper Prism application. Okay, so because we're taking on a lot more of the functionality, so we have to add a new class called a Bootstrapper. And what this Bootstrapper is going to do, it's a very simple class. It's basically going to initialize all the services that we're going to be using. So here's the Unity Bootstrapper. Because we're using Unity Bootstrapper, we have a method called createShell, and I'm going to return container.resolve of t, main window, because this is what I'm going to use as my shell. And I'm going to get a little squiggly underline because this is actually a using statement from Microsoft.practices.unity. This is a extension method here. Okay, so now that we have this create shell, we have one more step. We need to call initialize shell, And all we do here is say application.current.main.window.show. That's it. We're done. Okay, we're done here for now. And then we have to tell our app that, hey, you know what? We're no longer going to listen to this silly startup URI because we're building a real app now. So we're not going to use that. Instead, we're going to rely on our Bootstrapper. So I'm going to come into my app.xaml.cs. I'm going to override the onStartup. And in here, we're just going to create a new instance of that Bootstrapper. And we're just going to call run. And that's it. We're done. Okay? So now what's going to happen is if I just run this as is, I'm not going to make any other changes. I just want to make sure that our Prism app is set up. It is. So here we go. It's working perfect. Okay, so now what I want to happen is when I click on these, I want to actually navigate around. Okay, so we're running a little short on time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste in some code, and then I'm going to explain it to you. So I'm going to pop in this main window view model, and I'm just going to copy this on in here, make that public, bindable base. Okay, so what we have here, for one, we have a navigate command, delegate command of T. T is the parameter type. So if you look at my instantiation of this delegate command, I'm passing in the navigate method, and it has a string parameter. That's where the T is. Okay, this is my parameter type. Now we also are asking for what's called the region manager. Now the region manager is what we're going to use in order to navigate around the application. And it's really easy. You see I have this request navigate content region. Well, right now I'm using a magic string, but in the real world you won't use a magic string. This means that I need to go to my main window and I need to define an area that's going to act as my region. So that means we need XML and S. We need to add our Prism namespace. We're going to need to do our ViewModel Locator. Done. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to say Prism, region manager, region name, content region. So we gave this a name, and ReSharper's still mad at me, but I'm not restarting Visual Studio again. Okay, so in a production app, you're going to use constants, right? We're not going to use magic strings, but for this app, we don't care. So I'm giving this content control. I'm saying, hey, content control, you're going to be a placeholder for stuff I'm going to inject into you. I'm going to navigate to things, right? And you're going to hold the stuff I navigate to. So we have the content region. So now it should make sense. We're saying, hey, I'm getting the region manager, and then I'm going to request navigation to this region, passing in the URI. Okay, wait a minute. Where's this URI come from? Well, let's check this out. Let's go back to our main window, and we're going to hook these buttons up. Okay, so we're going to add a command. We're going to create the binding to the navigate command, and then we need to pass a command parameter. I'm going to navigate to view A on this one, and let's just copy this over, and then we'll paste that in our next parameter will be view B. Okay, so this command is going to invoke the navigate command, and we're going to pass either view A or view B, depending on the button, to the method, the navigate method. So we're going to get view A or view B here, and then we're going to request navigate. So let's just run it as is and kind of see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to click view A. Okay, now we get system.object. Okay, that's kind of weird. What's going on here, Brian? Well, this is the part of Prism that is a little complicated. Okay, I like to keep it simple. This is the one part I'm not extremely happy with. I wish I could make it simpler, but it's not going to happen because it has more to do with containers than it does with Prism. So because we're using a Unity container to resolve these types, we actually have to register our types so that Unity knows how to resolve them. Okay, so we have to say, hey, container, we're going to register. We're going to register our type. We can't do it that. We can't use the generic right now. our type of, this is going to be type of object. It will always be type of object. And then the next parameter is going to be the view type, so view A. And then lastly, the key. Okay, so this is the parameter we're passing in. I can name this A, but if I did that, I'd have to come in here and change that to A. Okay, so, but we're just going to call that view A. We'll paste this in, view B. We'll change that to view B. Okay, that's fine. Now, since we registered with our container, and this is going to be the same if you're using a structure map or AutoFac, you're going to have to register it with your container. Now when I navigate to view A, we're at view A, works like it expects, view B, right? Back and forth, navigating. And I can navigate anywhere I want, doesn't matter. Okay? So boom, we got navigation solved. Now, because I am working on the next version of Prism right now, I am fixing this for you guys. I'm going to make this simple. Basically what's going on is you're going to have an extension method that looks like this. So now all you'll have to do is this, and there's going to be lots of overrides, okay? So don't worry about what you're seeing now, because there's going to be a couple of different overrides to give you a lot of control. You'll have a register type for navigation, and just put in your type, view A, and you're done. Okay, or you can override it and provide an actual key. Now you're probably thinking, but Brian, I'm used to navigating to ViewModels, right? So if I'm in here and I'm calling navigate off of something, I'm used to saying, hey, I'm used to something like this. View B, ViewModel, or something like that, right? You're used to something like this, and you don't have a URI, right? Well, in the next version of Prism, you'll be able to do this. Because technically, this is just a mindset. In Prism, we don't care what you navigate to. As you see, we're using tokens. We're using what some people refer to as an experience. Okay, you don't know if you're navigating to a view or a view model. It's irrelevant. I just know I'm navigating to something called view A or ABCD, doesn't matter, right? And then as you get more into Prism, you can actually pass parameters. Okay, but we don't have time for that, but it's easy to pass parameters as you navigate from view model to view model, no big deal. Okay, so any questions on the navigation right now?
Let's see. Instead of user control to register in Prism, how do you have something for Windows? I don't know if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Okay, so for one, when you're talking about navigation, like we're talking about here, you can't navigate a window inside of another window. It's not allowed. If you're going to be showing other windows, you're going to be using what's called like a dialog service. And yes, we do have a solution for showing, for popping up windows with navigation. It's just a little more involved in the simple experience you're seeing now. Because right now, this is all about keeping it simple, and this is extremely simple. Your code is simple, the implementation is simple, nothing is difficult about this at all. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to touch on, I'm done here. You know what? We can delete that. Prism, the actual release of Prism 6 will look much better. This experience will be much better. But now let's talk about communication between loosely coupled view models. Okay, so I have a view A and I have a view B. That means I have a view A view model and a view B view model. How do I send messages between them? And I'm not talking about like, I don't want to navigate from view A to view B, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I did something in view A and in the view model, and whatever I did, I need to notify other things, whatever they are, that this occurred so they can respond to it. Okay? Well, that's where event aggregation comes in. Okay, so event aggregation is a pub-sub eventing model. Very loosely coupled, uses weak events, so you don't have to worry about managing memory or anything like that. So what I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to add a new folder, and I'm just going to call it events, make it simple. I'm going to add a new class. And let's say whenever we're updated, then we send this event. So I'm going to call this the updated event. We'll make this public. And all we have to do is derive from the pub sub event of T. And T is the payload you're going to send with the event. This is your message, right? The message type. Is it an object? Is it a person? In my case, I'm just going to send a string. It's no big deal. Okay, and that's it. I have my event defined. This is all it takes. Now let's say in view A, view model, whenever this execute right here, whenever this is invoked, I want to send this message to something, whatever it is. Okay, well that's easy. First, we're going to start by asking for the event aggregator. And you're probably thinking, like, Brian, I mean, what do you? I don't see you ever newing up this event aggregator. For main window view model, I don't ever see you newing up the region manager, but you're asking for it in its constructor. Actually, I don't see you newing up any view models. How on earth does this work, right? Where's the magic? Well, the magic resides on first, we're using Unity as a container to do just that. Whenever I ask for an object, a container will automatically look and see what dependencies that object has in its constructor. And if it knows about these dependencies, it will create them for you automatically. You don't have to do anything. The other part of this magic that happens is the ViewModel Locator right here. This line of code that ReSharper's not liking. Okay, this ViewModel Locator knows if you're using Unity or not, right? So previously, before we added the Prism.Unity package, it wasn't using a container. It was using activator.createInstance to create your view models. But once we added Prism.Unity, it says, oh, I know that you want to use a container now. So now, instead of using activator.createInstance to create this view model whenever you ask me to, I'm going to use Unity to do that. So when Unity does that, it looks at the constructor of the view model and says, oh, I know what you're asking. You have a dependency there. I know that dependency, so I'm going to create it for you and hand it to you because you need it. So that's kind of how that magic works, okay? So now I can say, hey, event aggregator, we're going to get the event, updated event, and we're going to publish this event. And I'm going to pass my payload, which is the last updated. I'm just going to toString it. Okay, boom, I'm sending a message to anyone who cares. Okay, so that means I need somebody who cares. So that means we need a view model, another view model to listen for this. So for time's sake, we're just going to go ahead, we're going to create another view model, view B, view model. Okay, here's my convention, the name of the view, and then we append view model to it. Make it public. Of course, we have our awesome bindable base class, and then I'm just going to paste this stuff in here. All right, so we have a message that the view model, view B is going to have to bind to, so we have to go update that. But the view model, hey, it says, hey, I'm asking for the event aggregator, right? It's asking for it, so I'm going to get it. We'll say, hey, get the event update event, and I'm going to subscribe to this event. And when I subscribe, what happens is anytime this updated event is invoked from anything, I'm going to listen for it. And when I hear it, I'm going to do something with the payload that it's sent. Okay, in this case, I'm setting the message here to whatever was sent. So that means we got to go to view B, and once again, we have to add our Prism namespace here at the top. No big deal, this is easy. And then, of course, ViewModelLocator AutoWire equals true, and we're done. Okay, let's bind the text here. We called that message. Now let's run the app. I'll drag it on over. So let's navigate to view A. Here's view B. Okay, perfect. We'll go back to A. Let's just type some stuff in here. I'm going to hit update. A message will be sent. Okay. And view B got that message, and then we set the property, and then it automatically notified the UI because we're bound to it. It updated. Perfect. Right? Beautiful. I mean, this is awesome. So now it should say 95904. 95904. Perfect. So there, we solved communicating between view models. Okay, so this simple app here shows you how to solve the major problems you're going to have in any app, regardless of MVVM. Okay, so imagine you're just doing code behind. Let's say that you don't do MVVM. You can still utilize the navigation. You can still utilize the commanding, especially delegate command and observing properties, observing can execute. You can still use event aggregation. Okay, and Prism, I didn't even get into the modularity aspect of Prism, which is where Prism really shines on very large line of business applications in the enterprise. That's a different talk altogether. So that basically wraps up implementing MVVM in a, I mean, simple. I don't even know if I can make it any simpler than this one line of code here. Okay, now for people who have already used the ViewModel Locator in the past, you might remember that the view required what's called an iView. You guys remember that? Well, that doesn't exist anymore. That's not needed. So don't worry about that anymore. You didn't see that anywhere in here. I just want to point that out for current Prism users, that that's been a change. You no longer get that, and you're no longer going to get the Visual Studio underlined squiggly saying this is broken. This squiggly is actually ReSharper being a pain in the butt, and this kind of happens a lot. So I need to follow another bug with ReSharper. So does anyone have any questions on the eventing model?
Let's see. We have this binding, the navigation between the two views. Is this similar to the parent-child binding that's commonly being referred up?
I don't know exactly what that's referring to, a parent-child binding. No, the binding here, so if I open up my main window, it has a region, and you can create as many of these regions as you want. You can have regions within regions if you like. I can have this region defined here, and then on view A, I can have another region within it, right? And I can actually have multiple instances of the same region if I use scoped regions, which that's more advanced topic. And I can have as many of these as I want. So if you guys want to see an older example, let me bring up Infragistics right quick. We have a lot of Office-inspired samples, so things like Excel, Outlook. We're going to go to sample applications here. So you can download this IG Outlook. This is using an older version of Prism, but it uses what I just showed you, minus the ViewModel Locator because that didn't exist with the version of Prism this uses. This should be updated. But it uses event aggregation and commanding and all that to build actual Outlook. And it's dead simple. Okay, so just go to infragistics.com. What I did is I went to the WPF product, and I went click View Sample Applications. And then we have a couple. We have this Excel. This is a Prism app. We have the Word. That's a Prism app. And we have Outlook. That's a Prism app. And they're all about developing Office-inspired applications.
All right, let's see. We have someone who wants to know, can you please show the update event class?
Yep. This is it. This is the update event class. So for every event, that unique event you want, you create a new class. And for example, we would probably just call this class the file events. Yeah, we'll rename that. And then for every event I had, I would just put them all in one spot. You might do that. I've seen that. And maybe this is like a person, right? Something like that. Something, I don't know. But you get the idea. It's very simple.
All right, let's see. We have someone who wants to know, are there any best practices to use the event aggregator as it's a singleton?
Okay, so event aggregator is a singleton, but the beauty about event aggregator is you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to manage memory. You don't have to worry about any of that. Anywhere in your application, when you ask for an event aggregator, you're going to get the same one, and all you have to do is subscribe and publish. That's it. You don't have to worry about memory leaks or anything like that, as soon as your object is collected by the garbage collector, all references to that object are removed, so you don't have to worry about any type of memory management. It's all handled for you. So all you care about is publish and subscribe. Just one line of code right there. That's all you care about.
All right. Let's see. We have, is the event aggregator thread safe?
Yes, it's thread safe, and not only that, you can tell it what thread to publish on. You can actually filter events. So this webinar was a very simple intro just to kind of show it off, but maybe we do a follow-up. This gets more in-depth into more advanced scenarios. But for your simple scenario, this is it right here.
There are tons and tons and tons of questions. I really don't think we're going to be able to get to all these, but let's see. A lot of people are actually interested in finding out if you're going to be putting this on GitHub or if it's going to be on Pluralsight. I know that through Infragistics, everybody who registered and attended will be getting a copy of the recording via YouTube, and we're going to have it up on our website as well, but it looks like a lot of people are also interested in having the code to be able to play around with.
Yeah, so Prism, well, Internet Explorer is being a pain, so let me just close Internet Explorer and open up Chrome. So if you go to prismlibrary.com, it redirects to github.com, and this first one right here, Prism, this is the Prism 6 that's on GitHub, and this is where the current code base is. So feel free to, and oh good, my build is passing. So we have, you know, automation, build automation built in, so whenever I check in, you'll automatically know if I broke something. But you'll see all the source code for the various, you can see we're working on Windows 10 right now. Right now, Windows 10 just got the ViewModel Locator, for example. So you can come see how we did ViewModel Locator for Windows 10. And you can download it and play with it. When Brian Noyes is working on Windows 10 implementation right now. But here's our Xamarin Form support, right? Here's our WPF support. Here's the core. This is everything that's core to the PCL that you can use in any app. I didn't even have time to get into delegate command. Delegate command is really cool. You know, that's basically like a save all. You can have, so these commands that we had inside of our view models, like this command right here, I can actually register this command to what's called a composite command, and that's kind of like registering child commands to parent commands. And whenever I click the parent, it goes through all the children and invokes them all. So like save all. So that's pretty cool.
All right, let's see. How about what is the .NET Framework version requirement for Prism 6?
So Prism 6 for WPF is 4.5 and greater. We don't support 4.0 anymore. So Prism 6 is all about .NET 4.5 and greater. The PCL, the core stuff of Prism, the event aggregation, the commands, all that stuff, that's in a PCL.
Okay. If there are a lot of elements in the view, do you recommend creating an object like person instead of defining properties in the view model? And do you have anything that shows an example?
Yes, actually, like I said, in a production app, you're going to have business objects that represent your domain. You will have a person object, okay? And actually, I do have a sample that I can drag over, I think this one, because it actually shows a delegate command. See, this one actually uses modularity, but we'll go into this people module, and you'll see I'm actually using a person. Now, the observed property doesn't work on expandable objects like this because of memory leaks, right? So you'll be responsible for managing this. So in this case, I'm taking this person, I'm hooking into its property change because I need to raise the save commands can execute anytime a property on this object changes, okay? And because this property can be set to multiple instances throughout the lifetime, you have to first check to see if you have a previous instance and unsubscribe, because this is memory management here, right? Then you set the value, then you get the new value and hook into its property changed. This is what you'll be doing in a production app. The reason observes property doesn't handle this for you, like, observe property person dot first name, is because since this property can be set multiple times within the lifetime of the view model, we don't have access to the previous instances of multiple properties on a view model. So in these scenarios, you'll have to do this little bit of code here. But it's not that bad. It's not hard.
All right, let's see. We have a little bit more time for a couple more questions. Can you pass any object as a navigation argument?
Yes, you can. So in this sample that I was showing right here, I might actually be passing. So let me run this sample and just kind of show you guys, because something I want to show you is you see this global commands right here, and how I'm saying global commands save all command.register. Let me just highlight this, because this is what I was just talking about. It just happens, this sample happens to have it. So I have two instances of this view that I've navigated to in my, it's in a tab. So I can save them individually, like save this one, right? Come over here, save this one, that's fine. Or I can save all of them, so watch the time. So that says 10:34, come over here, 10:34. So I click the save all and saves all of them. But what's cool is if one of them is invalid, the composite command checks all the can executes, and if one of them returns false, it returns false. Like I can't even click that because this guy's invalid. I have to make that valid before I can click on it. All right, but yes, you can pass any object as a parameter. So let me open up, I'll just show you kind of the syntax for that because I can. Here, we'll go to main here. So I can create something like parameters equals new navigation parameters. And I can say parameters dot add, whoops, dot add, right? You got to give it a key, so ID, and then whatever value. It could be a person instance. So maybe this is an ID, maybe this is person, or whatever, right? And you can just keep adding as many as you want. And then when you want to, you just patch your parameters, and you're done. Right? There's an overload to pass parameters, so that's no big deal. And this navigate parameters also has a string override, which basically allows you to do something like, whoops, like that. So a URL query. So you can take URL queries from a website and parse them into your own parameters, which is pretty cool. Any more questions?
So, yeah, we have a couple of, I've a lot of questions.
Bring them.
Let's see.
I don't have any meetings right now. I can stay as long as people need me to.
Excellent. All right, let's see. How do you inject controllers to your view models?
Well, if you need to inject something into your view model, because you're using a container, so let's just create something to inject because we can do that. This is how easy it is. Let's go, I'm going to create, just so we're all in the same spot right here, I'm going to create a class. Well, first I'm going to create an interface. Person service, right? We'll do that. And it's not going to do anything. And then we're going to have a class called person service, if I can spell, that implements person service, right? And this class doesn't do anything. It's just for demonstration purposes. But let's say that in my main window view model here, I'm going to ask for person service. Person service, person service. If I were to run this as is, it will crash. It will throw an exception, because when that container says, "Oh, you're asking for person service," I see that, but I don't know anything about it. You need to tell the container about it. So you're going to come to your configure container. You're going to say, "Hey, container, register type. Whenever I ask for person service, give me person service." Now, when we run the application, we're going to hit this breakpoint. Let me minimize that. And you'll see that we now have a person service, which is misspelled, but that's fine. Not only that, but you can start, because you're using a container, you can say, hey, I want this to be a singleton. So now whenever I ask for this person service, I'm going to get the same instance every time, just by adding this one little snippet there in the constructor. So if you need to inject other dependencies, you need to let your container know about them, and this is how you do that.
Okay. Let's see, we have, will Prism ever publish any guidance regarding connecting models to services such as REST APIs, etc., for instance, in N-tier architectures, or is that beyond the scope of Prism's goals?
That's kind of beyond the scope of Prism. But the Microsoft Patterns and Practice team is working on guidance around Azure services and building apps with Azure. So that's probably where I would start looking for that type of guidance. The Prism library, that's kind of out of the scope of the Prism library. Prism's more about application architecture. Even though, so Prism's always been known as a MVVM framework, and actually up until Prism 5, it had nothing to do with MVVM. It didn't even have a base ViewModel class in Prism 4.1 in prior. But Prism is not an MVVM framework. It is an application framework. It sits higher than that. You know, Prism 5 introduced some support for MVVM, and Prism 6 takes it further. But it's just MVVM is just another aspect of problems that Prism provides guidance to solve.
Okay. Let's see, Mark Seaman says that ViewModelLocator is an anti-pattern. What's your position on this?
And I completely agree for the reasons I was just describing. The traditional ViewModelLocator is a pain in the butt to manage. You know, you got to create the class with static properties, add a new property for every view model. As you can see, the difference with Prism's ViewModelLocator is not an anti-pattern, because you no longer have to open up and extend classes constantly, right? You're not breaking that solid principle that open for extension, close for modification. You know, you're not breaking any of that. You don't have to worry about that. That concern has been taken away from you. So in this instance, Prism's ViewModelLocator is not an anti-pattern. It is just a automatic mechanism for you to set the data context of a view. You don't have to worry about anything else in your code.
Nice. All right, so what would you say is the main difference or advantage of Prism over MVVM Lite?
So let me take it the other direction. MVVM Lite has an advantage over Prism in the aspect of design time data. Okay, that's where MVVM Lite is really strong for blend users, for designers who love design time data that don't use the built-in blend tools for design time data. Okay, Prism doesn't support design time data because we use advanced, development techniques such as using dependency injection, which a lot of developers do not use, and frankly, it confuses them. They don't know how it works, right? So Prism does everything else, right? MVVM Lite is specifically MVVM. Prism does everything else from modularity. So if I were to bring up, let me find, was it this demo here? So Prism also has modularity. You see these three separate projects that can be independently developed and tested. Well, let's just take a look at the Prism app. It has one view in it called Shell. That's it. And this is what it looks like. It has three regions in it. A region for a toolbar, a region for a status bar, and then the content region. This app comes together at runtime. These modules here, these different assemblies have no knowledge of either the root application, has no knowledge, the toolbar doesn't know about the people doesn't know about status doesn't know about people or toolbar. You get the idea. It's completely loosely coupled application development. So Prism is different than MVVM Lite. Like I was alluding to, Prism isn't just an MVVM library or framework. It's much more than that. So if all you care about is MVVM, you need to use something like Prism ViewModelLocator, something simple, like, we have navigation solved and all that stuff in Prism. That's something that, isn't necessarily solved with MVVM Lite because it's an MVVM framework.
All right, let's see, we have a question here. I've read tidbits about Prism making debugging more difficult, especially tracing specific exceptions. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are I've never had a problem debugging exceptions with Prism because Prism doesn't do anything to your code. It sets up guidance and it provides tooling for you to write loosely coupled, easily testable, easily maintainable applications. It doesn't do anything to your code. So I don't know where you read that or what the scenario behind that is, but a lot of developers know that the first thing someone does when their code doesn't work is they go look for putting that blame on something else instead of their own code. I can almost guarantee you, I'm not saying for sure, but 99% I can say that whatever they were having problems with probably didn't have anything to do with Prism, because we don't do anything special with exception handling or injecting into your code or anything. Your code is your code. If your code throws an exception, your code throws an exception. If you're doing multi-threading, then you need to learn how to debug multi-threaded code and multi-threaded exception handling.
Okay, this is a good one. How do you validate while moving from one view to another?
What do you need to validate? That's kind of an open question as well. So if you need to know, let's go back to this here. If I'm in my main view model window and we're navigating to, say, view A, check this out. Actually, view B has less in it, so let's go to view B, view model. Let's go I navigation aware. We're just going to implement I navigation aware. And I'm going to get some methods here. One is on navigated from and on navigated to. So I'm going to put on navigated to, and I'm going to run the app again. And just because I implemented that interface, let me get rid of that. I put I navigation aware there, and when I navigate to view B, I know I'm being navigated to view B, and I can get the parameters from the navigation context here, which I didn't pass any, that may have been passed, and now I know that this view model has been navigated to, and you can do whatever you want right here. And if you navigate away from this view model, you'll know that you're being navigated away from. And besides that, we also have another interface called I confirm navigation request, which adds another implementation that allows you to do a check. Am I allowed to even navigate, right? Can I even come here? Is this possible? Can I navigate away from this spot or not? True or false? And if it comes back false, then it doesn't even go anywhere, right? So Prism, there's a lot to Prism that we can't cover in this one webinar. That's why I suggest watching my courses, The Introduction to Prism. That covers a lot of the basics of Prism. Although it is older, is in 2010, I think, so it's based on a very early version of Prism. I'll be updating that. I have what's new in Prism 5. I started a new series called Prism's Problems and Solutions, so it's where I actually solve specific problems. For instance, my next one is showing how to master the tab control as a region. So check out those courses on Pluralsight, and you'll learn a lot more about Prism.
That about wraps it up for us. We have a couple of other questions, but we're running out of time, unfortunately. So I think I'm going to pass it on over to you to wrap it up, Brian, if there's anything you'd like to cover before we end.
Okay, no, that's about does it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys will go and try Prism out. Remember, it's on NuGet. If you guys care about the GitHub, it's github.com/prismlibrary. You can just go to prismlibrary.com and it will redirect here. And also, we're on NuGet, so we're in a preview. So if you want to add this, don't forget in your Visual Studio, you got to change to include the pre-release, right? So in NuGet, if you just type Prism 6, you'll see Prism 6 for Xamarin Forms, Unity, Meth, Autofact, Structure Map, the core Prism 6, and then Prism 6 for WPF. These are the new NuGet packages that just released like 3-4 days ago. But that about wraps it up for me. If you guys have any questions, let me bring you back to my, if I can learn how to work PowerPoint here. If you have any questions, please email me, blagunas@infragistics.com. Go to my blog, contact me on my blog, or just hit me up on Twitter. You know, just shoot me a message, and I'm pretty responsive. I try to be responsive when I can, but you know, you don't know